Hi, I'm Someone Elusive Fangirl, and today I'm here to start reading Chapter 2 of the Scum villain's self-saving system. I don't know how far I'll get. I don't know if I'll finish the whole chapter or not. I think what I'm going to aim to do is, rather than set like a set page number or like an aim just to do a whole chapter, is I'm going to aim to kind of keep recordings to about an hour and a half. And when it gets to that point, I'll try and find a good stopping point. So it might be just before, or it might be just after. I'll keep an eye on the time, or try and keep an eye on the time. So yes, in the last session, we did the whole of chapter 1. And it feels great to just get back into the story and be able just to properly immerse myself in it this time. And just, read it all the way through and get it essentially just keep immersed in it rather than having to stop and start all the time and then losing track of characters and other things like that. Excuse me, sorry. Throat again, still recovering from a flu. So hopefully it's not too bad. And again, I'll be cutting out any coughs or also me drinking water. Because yes, if you're watching this as well, I hope you're keeping hydrated. But I am, but you don't need to see that, so I cut them out as well. Speaking of characters, since my last recording, and I don't know why I didn't do this before, but I think it made me very aware. Well, it was late when I actually decided to do it, but it made me very aware, I try my best with pronunciations, but I'm not fab, which is what I said in the last video, but I've had a go at creating a little mini guide for myself if I'm having a blank. It doesn't guarantee that I'll remember to say it that way, because some of these names I'll have read in my head different ways, or I'll have said them aloud different ways before, but I will try and remember to use my little kind of memo just to help with when I'm stuck with pronunciations. I had some really nice response to the first video, so that was really nice. Thank you very much for actually watching it. And I hope you'll continue with me on this journey. So we finished chapter 1 with the infamous, famous, whatever, smile. And I think Lobinghu's first, kind of slight panic of kind of oh no, he's hot, kind of thing. He's he's not, I can't remember how he put it. Actually, let's have a look. It was something that he's not insanely beautiful, but he is very attractive or something. He is an attractive man still. He said he couldn't qualify as supremely beautiful, which is quite a high, standard anyway. I don't know if it's very few people I probably would classify as supremely beautiful. They're very hard to get to that point. I think if you're beautiful, you're doing well enough. But yeah, so we're heading to Xuanhu City and going to deal with a Skinner demon. And so in terms of memory, it was pretty much the end of this mission, which I actually remember in terms of stuff from the novel. But even then, I won't remember all the details from it. And then after that, though, literally my only memories are of the rest of the Donghua. I remember reading, but I don't remember characters, and I don't remember literally any scenes at all. So I'm very excited to carry on beyond this mission, but I'm actually very excited for this mission as well. Quick thing about comments, I'd really appreciate if the comments are spoiler free. If you'd like me to read your comment or discuss your comment in a future read through, then please put the chapter title at the top, and then it means that after I've read that chapter, I'll try and remember to go back to your comment so I can discuss whatever point you've brought up. But yes, no, if you've got any spoilers you'd like to put under a video, I'd actually prefer if you could either wait until that chapter's been read or just before that chapter, so I can then read your comment after I've read that chapter in the next session. So yeah, I think without any further ado, I think we're just going to get into it. So, got chapter 2, which is titled Mission. Having learned his lesson, Senching Cho spent the rest of the trip stone-faced until they finally arrived at... Oh my god, yes, I forgot about the fact that the... obviously the smile got deducted points from him, and he was like, really? For a smile? And the system was like, you're being OOC. There is no getting around this. Senching Cho spent the rest of the trip stone-faced until they finally arrived at Shuanghu City without incident. Although the city wasn't large, it was reasonably bustling. After gaining entry, they took up residence at the mansion of Old Master Chen, the city's richest man. He was also the one who facilitated sending someone to Sanchong mountain sect to plead for assistance. 2 of Old Master Chen's beloved concubines had died horribly at the Skinner demon's hands, so he'd been desperately looking forward to Senching Cho's arrival. He rubbed his beautiful third concubine's small, white, jade-like hands as he moaned and groaned to their whole party, eyes overflowing with tears. "Immortal masters, you must help us. Nowadays I dare not let my again, sorry about pronunciation. Leave my side for a moment, for fear that the moment she's careless she'll be killed by that wretched monster." At these NPC-like lines, a powerful sense of déjà vu made Senching Cho's face twitch. He very much did not enjoy the sight of a 60-year-old coot and a young girl in her teens cooing at each other right in front of him. Oh, God, yeah, no. The fact that the amount of acting that Shen Yuan has to do within living this novel is insane, especially at the start of it. Again, I can't remember later on, because I know he's freer, but at the start, he just has to kind of ignore or suppress his actual reactions to things in the world because these things are the norm and he is meant to have grown up in this world, therefore he should also think of them as the norm. Luckily, Senching Cho retained the divine air of a lofty master. After this perfunctory meeting, he aloofly took his leave to his room, leaving Ming Fan to make small talk with Old Master Chen. Certain privileges came with simply being a master. No matter how aloof you were, no one dared say anything. In fact, the more aloof, the more respectful the gazes that trailed after you. Soon, Ning Yingying knocked and entered. "Shuzhuan, Yingying wants to go and walk round the market," she said sweetly. "Would Shuzhuan like to keep me company?" Speaking truthfully, no man could dislike being so prettily cajoled by a young girl. When she entered, Senching Cho had his back facing her, but upon hearing her plea, his heart half melted. He stilled the remaining half and glanced back with the air of one looking up from a book, the essence of a cold and detached intellectual, and said blandly, "If Yingying wants to go and walk around, she may ask several Shizhong or Shidi to accompany her. This master still has things to do before confronting the Skinner demon." Who else would she ask to keep her company? How could Senching Cho not know? At the same time, how could he not want to go out and play? Up until now, he'd been hunkered down inside Qi Jing Peak's bamboo house, forced his fake being an awesome master of arts and literature, meaning everything he did had to be done blandly. Blandly speaking, blandly laughing, blandly practicing the sword, blandly being a poser, bland to the point that he often had the urge to scatter a handful of salt over his head. just gonna season himself a little bit. What a damn pain! And now when he finally got a break to take a trip down the mountain, he was still trapped in his room because of the system's stance that the original Senching Cho liked quiet and would be unwilling to mingle. Senching Cho didn't even want to pretend to meditate, so he lay on the bed, just pretending to be dead. Shortly before sunset, Ming Fan entered the room to deliver a report. Finally, someone had come to talk to him, to keep him company. Senching Cho couldn't help but want to weep for joy. Every perk belonged to the male lead, every loneliness to the cannon fodder. Accompanying young girls to view coloured lanterns and such, none of that was for their lot. This disciple has closely examined the corpse, Ming Fan said, with a solemn expression. He presented the items in his hand. Senching Cho took a closer look. There were 2 stacks of yellow talismans, written upon with cinnabar ink. The paper had blackened to a shade akin to necrosis. "You use these talismans to assess the corpses for demonic energy?" he asked. Shuzhen's eyes see all. This disciple used these talismans in 2 locations, the first at the soil near the grave of a victim who'd been buried, the second beside a yet unburied corpse that's still at the coroner's. Even if the grave soil was this saturated with demonic energy, then that confirmed that the skinned demon was undoubtedly of the demon race. Finally, Shen Qingqiu knew what they faced. He cleared his throat, which made his following humph sound even colder. They dared to harm the lives of people within 100 kilometers of Zhangzhong Mountain. Since these demonic lowlifes came to our door, they can't blame our disciples for enacting justice on behalf of the heavens. Listen, he didn't really want to say this corny line so full of hot air, but he'd have been OOC if he didn't. Mingfan gazed at him reverentially. Shuxuan is wise. If Shuxuan took action, that demon would be taken care of in one strike, ridding the people of evil. Shen Qingqiu could say nothing. It seemed this master-disciple duo was right in the mould of "you reign, I'll worship," a most joyous union. To tell the truth, Shen Qingqiu was extremely satisfied with Ming Fan as a disciple. Even though he was a rich young master and spoiled rotten, he was never even a little arrogant in front of his teacher. Instead, he was absolutely obedient and incredibly respectful. A man could never dislike being worshipped like a god. Ming Fan had also single-handedly handled the travel preparations, from arrangement of food to lodging. If his IQ hadn't inevitably plummeted whenever he laid eyes upon the protagonist, transforming him into a schoolyard bully capable of any misdeed, he would also be a promising young sprout. I love that, and it's kind of interesting because it makes me wonder if, like, in Proud Immortal Demon Way, how many of the scenes took place without Lo Binghe, because I wonder if, like, you wouldn't get that impression of Ming Fan at all from reading the novel, because, like, the only interactions or the only times you'd ever see him is if he was interacting with Lo Binghe. And then I wonder if kind of like almost it's weird, like, to think about, but like kind of like the fact that it's such a switch up just whenever he's around Lo Binghe is kind of almost because he's made to be like that, kind of like it's almost forced, like, because it's so corny and sort of like so cliche. And actually, you know, he's otherwise just a pretty competent guy. I mean, we don't really either way, whether you see him with Lo Binghe or whether you see him with Shen Qingqiu, you're seeing kind of like a one-sided point of view, because we haven't yet really, apart from Ni Ying, haven't really seen him interact with anyone else. It's always either bullying Lo Binghe or being around Shen Qingqiu, in which case, like he said, he's really obedient and very respectful towards him. So I hope, I don't know how much we see of him, but I kind of hope we get to see him at least interact with some other people, because obviously he's been very competent here for his master and like for his master's reputation, etc. So, like, maybe he'd have been an okay guy if the author hadn't written him as he did, just as a constant school bully. But again, I don't know how much of that is his actual character and how much of that is kind of almost forced on him by being written that way. I don't know, it's a weird thought to have, like, are the characters within the story, are their characters what's actually written, or are they kind of forced to be like that? I don't know, it's very weird to think about now, and I'm now thinking too much about, you know, fictional characters and whether they are what we say they are or whether we're forcing them to be something. Ugh. Okay, too in depth, don't worry about it. And moreover, as a fellow victim, Shen Qingqiu always felt a kind of pity for this cannon fodder disciple who, in the end, Lo Binghe would throw into an ant pit so that he'd be bitten to death by tens of thousands of ants. How long would that take to be bitten to death by ants? Like, is it like I wonder if they're kind of like is it fire ants and bullet ants, like the really, really super painful ones? Is it just like your brain, like you not being able to cope with the pain anymore and you dying? Or like, is it being bitten to the point, I don't know, when you're bleeding to death? I have no idea. But either way, gruesome and long. This trip down from the mountains for the sake of your training. Unless at a last resort, this master will not assist you. Ming Fan, as the most senior disciple, you must design careful strategies lest you let that demon harm your fellow disciples. Yes, this disciple has already devised a tactical formation. As long as that demon... Before Ming Fan could finish, a person rushed into the room, interrupting him. Shuxuan! Liu Binghe's face was stark white as he yelled. Shen Qingqiu's heart thumped once, but he feigned indifference. What has happened to make you shout so loudly and in such a panic? Ning Ying Ying Shijie went with me to the city's market earlier today, Luo Binghe said. Once evening fell, I urged Shijie to return, but she refused. Then somehow she suddenly vanished. This disciple searched the entire street once, but couldn't find her, and he could only come back to plead with Shizhuan for help. If Ning Ying Ying had disappeared at this critical moment, this was no joke. Night had almost fallen. Ming Fan lit up right away. Luo Binghe, you... Shen Qingqiu promptly flicked his sleeves and the tea bowl on the desk exploded. What a fab ability. As a deterrent, it wasn't OOC, and more importantly, it prevented Ming Fan from further digging his own grave. Shen Qingqiu assumed an expression of barely suppressed anger. If it's already come to this, there's nothing more to say. Luo Binghe, come with me. Ming Fan, take a couple of shidi and ask landlord Chen for assistance. Then go look for your shime. Ming Fan sent a hateful look at Luo Binghe, but nodded and hurriedly left. Luo Binghe remained, his head lowered, not saying a single word. Shen Qingqiu knew this absolutely wasn't Luo Binghe's fault. Ning Ying Ying's role as a female character wasn't just to be lovable and cute, but also to dig her own grave and be a burden. In the original work, the number of plot twists caused by her sudden disappearances, blunders, or other messes had allowed airplanes shooting towards the sky to drag out the plot for hundreds of chapters. At times, Shen Qingqiu had been rather impressed with Luo Binghe's fortitude when it came to accepting marrow members. He never refused anyone, daring to accept even the most troublesome of women, and he did this without being screwed over or killed. Shen Qingqiu could only say that, as expected, the brilliant protagonist truly was overwhelmingly cool, awesome, insane, and badass, with a dick longer than the heavens. A normal person definitely couldn't have put up with such things. Luo Binghe, who thought Shen Qingqiu had ordered him to stay so as to beat and yell at him, said quietly, "This entire affair is this disciple's fault. If Shizhuan wants to punish this disciple, he will neither resent nor regret it. He only wishes for Ning Shijie's safe return." He looked incredibly pitiful. Shen Qingqiu wanted to pat his head, but as the assistant's existence obstructed this, he forcibly held himself back. "Come," he said coldly, "take me to the place where your Shijie vanished." Luo Binghe and Ning Ying Ying had lost each other at the most bustling corner of the market. Shen Qingqiu closed his eyes, and he sensed a barely perceptible thread of demonic energy. He followed that thread, which seemed like it would at any moment fray or snap, until he opened his eyes again and found that he stood at the doors of a cosmetics shop. Shen Qingqiu stared at it silently. Could it be that the murderer worked here? Would it be that easy? However, upon entering the cosmetics shop, the thread of the demonic energy snapped, dissipating completely. Perhaps the murderer wasn't hiding in the shop and had just come at some point recently. If they had patronised a cosmetics shop, was the Skinner deeming a woman? Shen Qingqiu made these stabs in the dark, and he led Luo Binghe inside to ask a few questions, but this yielded no results. This quest had been offered to him expressly so he could level up. Thus, none of its scenes had been in the original work, so he had no point of reference. Shen Qingqiu furthermore acknowledged that he wasn't a master of deduction capable of deep analytical thought who could infer a multitude of facts from a single clue. When playing room escape or detective games, he'd always run into dead ends. As he was agonising, the system thoughtfully notified him. "We notice that you have encountered difficulties. Would you like to spend 100 B points to activate easy mode?" "Shit, if there was something like an easy mode, you should have said so earlier," Shen Qingqiu snapped. Activate. He fixed his gaze on the yes option for 3 seconds. The option blinked green and disappeared. Then something in the air sent goosebumps all down his back. Such palpable demonic energy, as if they were afraid that otherwise no one would find the target. Calling this easy mode was no lie. Shen Qingqiu wasn't the least bit ashamed about using easy mode with Shen Qingqiu wasn't the least bit ashamed about using easy mode, and with spirits soaring, he strode in the direction from which the demonic energy emanated. A mere 500 steps later, they had left the central district and arrived in front of an abandoned, neglected house. This has to be the place. Just look at those ghastly white paper lanterns. Look at those dilapidated gates. A proper haunted house, don't you see? Shen Qingqiu schooled his expression and turned to Luo Binghe, who'd been silently following behind him. Return to Chen Manor and notify Ming Fan to bring all the disciples and their talismans here. Luo Binghe had yet to speak when his pupils suddenly contracted. He was staring straight at something behind Shen Qingqiu. That didn't bode well. However, it was too late in the end, and a gust of foul wind blew past, slamming the gates open. Shushwan, wake up quickly. Shen Qingqiu woke up. Upon opening his eyes, he saw Luo Binghe opposite him, looking awfully distressed, arms and torso bound. As Shen Qingqiu aroused himself, Luo Binghe heaved a sigh of relief, eyes brightening. Shushwan, Ning Ying echoed. She was tied up with Luo Binghe, her expression miserable. Shen Qingqiu was a little dizzy, and he had no idea if whatever crap the demon had sprayed on them had any side effects. He was in a foul mood. This easy mode was straightforward to the point of mercilessness. It had delivered him straight into the boss's mouth. The worst part is that the dignified Peak Lord of Qingjing Peak had been unexpectedly struck down by a mini-boss, and thus, shortly after he woke up, the system shrilly declared, OOC, B points, minus 50. He just spent 100 B points to activate easy mode, and now in a flash he's lost another 50. How could he not be distressed? I think he's like 15 or something left, or 5 left or something. He hasn't got much left. The original Shen Qingqiu's skill at facing down demons should have made this quest as easy as killing a chicken with a knife. Shamefully, the knife had failed to even hit the chicken. In seconds, Shen Qingqiu discovered something that made his mood even worse. His body felt a little strange. He was chilly, and he had a slight ache all over. Upon lowering his head, he almost couldn't stop a fuck from leaving his mouth. He'd been stripped naked. Only his upper half had been stripped naked, but that was already horrifying enough. Regardless of everything else, Shen Qingqiu was still a Peak Lord. This appearance with his upper half stark naked, his lower half wearing only a pair of pants and white shoes, and his 4 limbs bound tightly with a thin rope as he lay splayed on the floor. What was this? He looked exactly like a tender pretty boy caught in bed during an illicit act. No wonder the system had deducted 50 points straight off the bat. It was deserved. Even taking him to 0 would have served him right. Shen Qingqiu's face went from red to white and back. He wanted to dig a hole in the ground with his sword and bury himself for a while, but his sword had disappeared without a trace. Of course, Luo Binghe looked both worried and a little embarrassed. He definitely assumed that having seen Shen Qingqiu in a sorry state, he would inevitably suffer more vicious retaliation once they got back. Shushwan, you finally woke up, Ning Ying sobbed. Ning Ying is so scared. Scared? If you're scared, then don't go running off whenever you feel like it, young lady. Shen Qingqiu gave up. At this time, another thing, yes, the thing of dropping teas is something I do, like water bottle. Not quite as extreme like that, but I do drop teas quite a lot, so sorry if that annoys you. But like that, when I said unsettling, I'll try not to, but it might just happen, and if I stop every time I do it, or think about it too much, then my reading will get worse. At this time, an unsettling chuckle came from behind him. A tall, dark silhouette emerged from the pitch blackness. The great Sangchong Mountain? The great Peak Lord of Qingjing Peak? This is all you amount to? If the so-called greatest sect in the world is full of your sort, the day the demon race conquers the human realm is just around the corner. This was followed by another bout of crazed laughter. The speaker's head and face were covered with a black veil, and their voice was hoarse and unpleasant, as if their throat had been ruined by opium smoke. Shen Qingqiu squinted. The Skinner Demon? That's right, that's me, I'm the Skinner Demon. How wonderful that the illustrious Shoya sword has fallen into my hands today. Shen Qingqiu, even if you think until your wits give out, you won't be able to guess my identity. Why wouldn't I be able to guess? Asked Shen Qingqiu. The Skinner Demon said nothing. You're the heir, aren't you? The Skinner Demon said nothing again as they lifted their veil, and then she snapped in irritation. Impossible! How did you guess? Shen Qingqiu was speechless. Did she think he was blind? That he couldn't tell from her figure? Men love to look at bodies first before the face, okay? With that curvy bust and bottom, plus that tiny waist in between, she could only be a woman. Also, the room's furnishings smelled rich, and you couldn't find that just anywhere. Of course he knew that they'd been transported back to Chen Manor, and while Chen Manor had many women in residence, he'd only seen a couple, and only been introduced to Dier, so if he had to guess, of course he would only guess Dier. He didn't know anyone else's names. How could he guess them? But who knew you'd lose your cool so quickly, without denying it even a little, and jump right... But who knew you'd lose your cool so quickly, without denying it even a little, and jump right to lifting your veil? Could he say this? Could he? Listen, how could he say this out loud? He can only swallow it all down. I love the fact, he's just constantly, suppressing all of this snark, and just, This is one thing I remember loving about the story. As much as I don't remember the plot, I just loved his snark and like the fact he has to just suppress it all the time, but he's just like so sassy and snarky in his head, and then just like you said, he has to like, act so blandly and like calmly and everything out loud. The heir, or to be clear, the Skinner demon, quickly adjusted her posture and donned the face of old Master Chen's beloved concubine, thusly recovering that infinitely tender, stunning, and delighted smile. Not bad, it was indeed me, but Shenqing Chua, even if you guessed until your wits gave out, you couldn't possibly imagine why a weak and delicate woman like me could be the culprit, right? Shenqing Chua straightened, struggling to assume a posture that was more natural, less rule-violating. Bosses traditionally receive time to monologue. How could he not offer this courtesy? The heir didn't need his encouragement and continued unprompted. The Skinner demon comes and goes without a trace, not because I can fly through disguise or disappear into the earth, but rather because every time I finish killing a person, I change into their skin. By wearing these women's skins and imitating their behaviour, I can blend into the crowd with none the wiser and search for my next target. That's not right, said Shenqing Chua. Dier's expression darkened. What's not right? Suppose every time you killed a person you changed skins. For instance, when you killed the heir and wore her skin, you became the heir, but the heir's skinned corpse would still be there. Wouldn't someone find it strange that there are two heirs? Although, if he thought about it for a moment, he understood. It wasn't like this world had DNA identification. After skinning someone, all you had left was a messy lump of bloody flesh. Pretty difficult to tell exactly who it had been. Looks like you figured that out too, Dier said. Not bad. I used the current woman's corpse to substitute for the last woman's. For example, when I killed the heir, I was wearing Shang Er's skin, so everyone thought at the time that Shang Er was still alive. After I donned the heir's skin, I disguised the heir's corpse to look like Shang Er's before it was found. This villain's professional integrity was really impressive. Not only had she exposed her inner thoughts and feelings, she'd also explained her methods and line of criminal reasoning in detail. Offering examples, providing personal experiences, Dier was more diligently thorough than a college entrance exam cram school teacher. Luo Binghe had been silently listening the entire time, his eyes glittering with a trace of anger. His juvenile sense of justice had been stirred by this perverse demon's cruel actions. Meanwhile, Ning Ying-Ying's head was spinning from all the Shangs and Diers. She couldn't understand it at all, but she didn't dare interrupt. After a certain amount of time, you always change skins. Is this all whim, or do you have to? Shenqing Chua asked. Dier sneered. You'd think I'd tell you? You've already told me plenty, all right, sis? Or is it bro? What's one more? Dier walked towards where... Oh, I love the fact that actually pointing out the fact that he doesn't actually know if it is actually a woman because they're wearing a woman's skin, so it could be a male demon now inhabiting a female's skin and acting as a female. So it's like, yeah, hadn't thought about that. The heir walked towards where Ning Ying-Ying and Luo Binghe were bound together. Luo Binghe remained calm, but Ning Ying-Ying screamed, Demon, don't come near! Shujuan, save me! The heir chuckled. Your master's been bound with my immortal binding cable. Spiritual energy can no longer flow anywhere in his body. He can't hope to protect himself. How could he save you? Ah, that explained it. Shenqing Chua had been secretly attempting to gather his spiritual power, but it seemed to be obstructed. It didn't feel nearly as plentiful as it usually did. The heir had re-engaged monologue mode. Damn, if it weren't for my damaged martial aspect, I wouldn't need to constantly change skins and absorb human chi. You're a brat, but your skin is lustrous and tender, and you're a disciple from a prestigious sect. I'll expect I'll be able to use you for a good long while. After I suck your skin dry, it'll be your master's turn. That way I'll make sure that Xiao Yasuo didn't live his life in vain. Luo Binghe stared, silent. Shenqing Chua stared, also silent. What was that she'd said? You think I'd tell you, right? Not only have you told me, you also seem to have made the astonishing decision to reveal your plan. The professional standards of this world's villains are beyond salvation. So, Shenqing Chua said in his mind as he shamelessly called out to the system, if I make a mistake during a quest and I end up dead, will I get a chance to reload and try again? Only the protagonist is granted the privilege of plot armor, said the system. Great. Good thing this villain had the illustrious quality of must answer every question. If Shenqing Chua wanted to stall for time, he needed only toss another question at the air. Haven't you only targeted young, beautiful girls? He asked. I never said I only pick young, beautiful women. As long as they're good-looking and their skin is fine and smooth, I'll take anyone. It's just that most of the time a man's skin isn't as good as a woman's, and the skin of the elderly is never as good as that of the youthful. As expected, Dia chatted on and on. Then suddenly her eyes flashed green with envy and her expression grew yearning as she began to run her hands, painted with scarlet nail dye, over Shen Chu's upper body. However, cultivators are really different. Even though you're a man, your skin is so glossy and smooth. It's been so long since I had my male skin. As he was felt up by those searching I think... because it didn't say since I had my last male skin, it sounds like the demon did used to be a male. As he was felt up by those searching hands, Shen Chu broke out in goosebumps, though he strove to give off the air of the spotless and untouchable. Part of him was disgusted, but another part was sympathetic. Honestly, this demon was quite pitiful. It sounded like Dia had originally been a man, but they had to keep using the skins of women due to their condition. After such a long time, of course that would make you feel a little twisted. Of course that would make you a little twisted. In any case, right in this moment, the demon was wearing the infinitely lovely face of a concubine. Being felt up all over by those lovely hands, Shen Chu inevitably became embarrassed, and he involuntarily shrank back a little. This vision, that moment, struck Lo Bing-he to his core. Until now, he'd only ever seen Shen Chu's aloof and remote attitude, his derisive expression. But here and now, a faint, uncontrollable red flush formed on that face, and the way those eyes darted away. Also, Shen Chu's upper body was completely bare, but for the thin yet unbreakable mortal binding cable and the red marks it left, and for Shen Chu's long, dishevelled, jet-black hair, neither of which concealed anything. Lo Bing-he's chest was burning with a convoluted emotion that was impossible to describe. If you had let Shen Chu think up an analogy for this emotion, he would have said that it was like watching a beautiful romance movie, only to discover at the end that the protagonist was the English teacher who'd always picked on you to answer questions, and who, if you failed to answer, would give your palm 300 lashes. Yeah, he's going through some confusing emotions right now, and also, even though he can't act OOC, Shen Yuan has managed to already change how Shen Chu is acting toward Lo Bing-he. So it's he's already kind of dealing with quite a big change in attitude towards him, and now he's got to see him half naked. In short, it both shattered Lo Bing-he's worldview and it did him great injury. Shen Chu suddenly grinned. Why are you smiling? Why are you smiling? Dia asked warily. I'm amused at you and your poor judgment, Shen Chu. I'm amused at you and your poor judgment, said Shen Chu, slow and deliberate. Pearls before swine, as they say. There are 3 options here, yet out of them you keep overlooking the most suitable vessel. At these words, Lo Bing-he's face went pale. He could never have imagined he'd be randomly thrown to the wolves. However, Shen Chu wasn't speaking thoughtlessly. Remember who Lo Bing-he was. In truth, he was descended from a line of ancient heavenly demons. Legend had it that these denizens of the heavens had fallen into depravity and become demons, so they were called heavenly demons for short. As the future princes of demonkind, their bloodline was first class. If an ordinary demon got their hands on such a body, forget repairing a damaged martial aspect, would there be anything they couldn't do? Dia looked Bing-he up and down. The latter strove to appear calm, but inside he was panicking and didn't know what to do. Even though he thought until his wits gave out, he couldn't figure out why he had suddenly become the star of the standoff. If you want to trick me, you need a better lie, said Dia. This brat's appearance and aptitude may be exemplary, and his skin fresh and tender, but how can he compare to you? You've reached a stage of mid-core formation. With your level of insight, it's no wonder your martial training was unsuccessful, said Shen Chu, smiling. Think about it for a moment. What kind of person am I, Shen Chu? If this child possessed excellent aptitude and a fine appearance, but nothing else, why would I accept him as my disciple? If I only wanted a disciple with excellent aptitude, could I not have my pick of the talents who fight to enter Sanjiang Mountain sect every year? Though naturally my thought process could not be explained to outsiders. Dia wavered. Excellent. This villain's IQ was truly ridiculously low. They were so easy to trick that even though Shen Chu had conjured a hasty explanation riddled with logical holes, they actually seemed to half believe it. Shen Qingque struck when the iron was hot. If you're suspicious, there's an easy test. Let me share a method by which you can verify my words. Go over there and strike him on the crown of his head, and then you'll know whether I'm lying. Luo Binghe's face turned a ghastly white. Even though he was mature for his age, he was still a child. Even the most grown men couldn't stoically face their deaths, let alone a boy who was only 14 years old. Shen Qingque tried very hard not to look at him, and he desperately apologised in his heart over and over again. Binghe, you're a man of virtue. Please magnanimously forgive my small smack-talking and backstabbing just this once, okay? I'll never do it again. I'll definitely make it up to you in the future. Shushun, you can't be serious. Ning Ying was scared witless. Shen Qingque was on tenterhooks. It didn't even occur to him to comfort her. He only smiled at the air. You don't know if I'm telling the truth now, but you'll know as soon as you try. Why hesitate? It's only a single strike against an insignificant boy. Even if I were lying to you, you aren't risking anything, are you? Or are you worried that I'm telling the truth, so you dare not hit him? In the eyes of anyone who didn't know the truth, these were the words of a man eagerly pushing Luo Binghe to his death. Luo Binghe stared in disbelief. He wondered bleakly if Shen Qingque's hatred for him had truly become so great. But if that were the case, why had his master been just a little nicer to him on their trip to the city? Luo Binghe couldn't help but start struggling with all his might. The ropes restraining his body became tighter and tighter, biting painfully into Ning Ying, but she didn't dare to even breathe loudly and just quietly sobbed. Shen Qingque's words and tone were powerfully persuasive. Dia thought for a moment, and decided that at last, true enough, they had already killed so many people. How could they be afraid to kill one more? They snorted. I want to see exactly what sort of foolish game you're playing. As they said this, they strode towards Luo Binghe and brought their palm down. It would be over in an instant. Shen Qingque's pupils contracted. Right as Dia's strike came down, by curious coincidence, a ceiling beam broke. If Shen Qingque had still been reading Proud Immortal Demon Way, upon seeing this described, he would definitely have thrown down his cell phone and started screaming curses. The system had already declared it so. The one unbreakable, ironclad rule was that the protagonist could not die, meaning that as soon as the protagonist's life was threatened, a death flag would be triggered. Shen Qingque purposely goaded Dia into attacking Luo Binghe in order to take advantage of this rule. He had just used someone else to do his dirty work. Admittedly, this was rather unscrupulous, but Luo Binghe probably hadn't been in real danger, and if Shen Qingque hadn't done this, he would have had to pay the price himself. In the long term, even if he threw Luo Binghe under the bus this one time, there would be more chances to farm his favour in the future. However, to Great Master Airplane shooting towards the sky, what do you think of your reader's IQs? How could a ceiling beam suddenly snap in a perfectly fine, splendid and beautiful new mansion? Even if it was to let the protagonist escape with his life, this twist was still downright contrived. What's the difference between this and a third-rate melodrama where the male and female leads are just about to marry when they're suddenly hit by a car in a tragic twist ending? Downvote. The practically brand new ceiling beam fell straight down and just happened to coincidentally smack into Dia, smacking them flat onto the ground and rendering them unable to get up. The beam also coincidentally smashed into the pillar Luo Binghe and Ning Ying were bound to, causing it to slant. Ning Ying had already fainted from shock, but after some struggle, Luo Binghe's ropes had, further coincidentally, loosened. I love this part of the Donghua because it's literally just like the beam falls and then knocks down the demon, and then Luo Binghe just basically stands up and the ropes fall off him. It's very funny. After this string of coincidences, Shen Qingque, who was still on the ground and bound by the immortal binding cable, watched as Luo Binghe stared, unmoving, at the fall into the air in a puzzled silence. Was this it? Just as Shen Qingque thought that, Dia overturned the ceiling and beam and sprang up. Shen Qingque, they snarled in rage. The schemers of Sang Zhongsek are truly shameless and despicable. What sort of dirty trick do you use to ambush me from behind like that? Shen Qingque was in fact completely innocent. This had nothing to do with him, really. If anything, the chief culprit was Luo Binghe. So you really were lying to me, trying to draw my attention away so you could sneak attack me? Dia snapped, unforgiving. Otherwise, why would a perfectly good... Otherwise, why would a perfectly good ceiling beam come crashing down and just happen to smash into me? They also had the wits to notice the parts of the scene that were illogical, so their IQ wasn't beyond saving. Shen Qingque was a little relieved. Dia sneered. You thought this would be enough to stop me? Keep dreaming. The immortal binding cable can only be cut by an immortal sword. You can forget about breaking it via any other means. I just praised you and you goof up again. Don't reveal how to free the enemy, dear. Also, did Dia think that no one could see where they'd put Xiaoya? They even specifically drew back their cloak to show its place on their hip and patted it. Shen Qingque couldn't contain his exasperation, and he took a chance to communicate a little with the system. I need to ask, are all villains in this mould? To guarantee your ability to clear the beginner level quest, activating easy mode set the villain's IQ to below average. So not all bosses would be this easy to fumble through. Shen Qingque thought it was a bit of a pity, but he still smashed the like button. Thumbs up, thumbs up. This easy mode of yours is still a bit too user-friendly. Dia gritted her teeth. I won't listen to you no matter what you say this time, except your death, Shen Qingque. One last thing, Shen Qingque shouted. Sure enough, governed by easy mode, Dia stopped. What last words do you still have? Shen Qingque thought for a while. How does it feel to sleep with a 60-year-old coot? Dia was struck silent, but they were subsequently so enraged that their expression twisted, their entire body trembling. Luo Binghe took the chance to suddenly rush the demon from behind. He snatched Xiaoya from Dia's hip and drew the sword, filling the entire room with pure white light. A curled flash of silver and the immortal binding cable on Shen Qingque's body was neatly severed. Once more betrayed by the IQ loss of easy mode, the mini-boss Dia had completely ignored the existence of a living, breathing Luo Binghe standing right behind them. Dia cried out in fear. This is impossible! Enough, I'm not the listening type. I don't want to hear a rote analysis of the boss's true motives right before their death. The corner of Shen Qingque's mouth twitched, and he gathered all his spiritual power into his right hand, lashing out with the palm strike and smashing Dia in the chest. The demon flew back like a kite with a snapped string. This scene was so good in Donghua as well. It was just like no. I do not care for your dying monologue. I just want this over, and just completely destroys her or them. This was the first time that Shen Qingque had killed someone, but he didn't hold back, not even a little. First, because this was a book. Second, because this was a demon who'd killed countless people. And third, because if he didn't, he'd be the one who got killed. Shen Qingque gazed down at the horrible state of Dia, 4 limbs twisted and broken, bleeding from the 7 facial apertures. He turned away, bombarding his own brain with a barrage of his 3 reasons, until they blocked out the screen of his mind. So, again, yeah, showing again that Shen Qingque, he's really trying to convince himself, this is fiction, it's a book, they're not real. Also, this person has killed loads of people, and also this is to defend his own life. So he is really getting affected by stuff in the novel, when he couldn't stand watching the bullying happening on 2 occasions, and not for himself, just genuinely couldn't stand watching it. And now, even though this was an evil person or an evil demon he had to kill, they're still bleeding, and he's just killed someone as well. So it's a lot to deal with. Striving to remain calm, he slowly stood and straightened, settled his heart and breathing, fixed his posture, and turned to Luo Binghe. This is your first time seeing someone eliminate demons and uphold justice, he said. Were you scared? Luo Binghe's still childish face was slightly pale. If you wish to uphold, you must eliminate, said Shen Qingque, composed. The fact that, he's having to act really mature and composed in front of Luo Binghe, because Luo Binghe is freaking out. Well, he's scared. He just faced someone who might have killed him, who almost killed his master and his Shijie. That's a scary thought. Especially if this is his first time properly going down the peak. I don't know if they've really said about that or not, but it might be one of his first few times coming down. So, that would be frightening. And Shen Qingque knows that he needs to appear calm and composed in front of him, not only to not act OOC, but actually doing it for him as well. Luo Binghe gritted his teeth. His voice quavered. Shizhuan, if this disciple may be so bold as to ask, just now, when the second half of the sentence didn't arrive, Shen Qingque spoke. You want to ask, if that ceiling beam hadn't suddenly come crashing down, what was this master's plan? Shen Qingque had no choice but to suffer in silence. He yearned to tell Long Binghe, "Don't worry, even if the ceiling beam hadn't collapsed, perhaps the wall would have. Even if the wall hadn't, perhaps the pillar would have. Long story short, you definitely wouldn't have died. The boss definitely would have, and that's all there is to it." But he couldn't speak these words, so he could only adopt an unpredictable air and evade the question by changing the subject. "If you're asking this, are you blaming this master?" Lo Binghe shook his head. "No," he said, his expression sincere. "If this disciple could give up his life for Shizhuan, it would be an honour." Shen Qingqiu was shaken. This kid really was too much of a white lotus. "Then this master will promise you in kind," he said after thinking for a moment and settling on properly ambiguous words. Even if an accident befalls this master, no misfortune will come to you." This was an absolute truth. Even if Shen Qingqiu died 100 times. 100 times. Lo Binghe, the protagonist, with impervious plot armour, would go on living with imperfect health. "On this matter, I speak nothing but the truth." His voice resounded as he said this, his expression confident and collected, without the slightest hint of falsehood. When Lo Binghe heard these words, it was as if his life force had been ignited. The sunflower that had begun to wilt revived, full of renewed vigour. Holding Xiaoya in both hands, Lo Binghe lifted the blade until it was even with his brows and presented it to Shen Qingqiu. "Shizhuan, your sword." Shen Qingqiu grasped Xiaoya, taking it from him. Internally, he wiped away his sweat. For now, this child was way too easy to dupe. He'd been thrown under the bus and frightened out of his wits, but a couple of words were all it took to restore him to full health in the blink of an eye. But in the future, he wouldn't be so easy to fool. The path to adulthood truly was tangled with thorns and suffering. Then a series of system notifications came at him like a succession of cannon blasts, sending Shen Qingqiu into Cloud 9. Ning Yingying's favour increased. Protagonist satisfaction points, plus 50. Obtained, high-level item. Immortal binding cable. Villain strength, plus 30. Completed beginner level quest. B points, plus 200. OOC feature unfrozen. From this point on, you have full command over the Shen Qingqiu account's controls. Congratulations. Please continue to work hard. Shen Qingqiu had fallen a little in love with the sensation of these dramatic ups and downs, the intense joys and sorrows. It was basically gambling. And now the OOC feature was unfrozen. From this point on, he could finally carry out the great and glorious task of clinging to the male lead's thighs. Upon returning to Xiangchong Mountain, the first thing Shen Qingqiu did was ascend Chongding Peak, which was safeguarded by the sect leader, and report his work to Yue Qingyuan. Previously, Shen Qingqiu had thought Shangmen Shizhong's existence was basically that of a quest-giving NPC, but as soon as he entered the mountain gates, this impression disappeared without a trace. Shen Qingqiu had yet to enter the main hall when Yue Qingyuan descended upon him, leading a retinue of Chongding Peak's disciples to welcome him. They had just come face to face and smiled at each other, and hadn't yet even said anything when Yue Qingyuan's right hand grasped Shen Qingqiu's wrist. Shen Qingqiu was instantly surprised. However, Yue Qingyuan made no further movement and instead examined him attentively through his pulse, even inserting a mild spiritual flow of his own to investigate Shen Qingqiu's. He realized then that Yue Qingyuan was only inspecting his spiritual circulation, and he relaxed. After a moment, Yue Qingyuan let go. He smiled and walked with Shen Qingqiu to the main hall. "How was the training?" His tone was like that of an eldest brother, which made Shen Qingqiu remember his former self's two brothers. He felt a slight sorrow, but greater still was the comforting sense of warmth, to the point that even his dejected report came out cheery. Unsatisfactory. His disciples hadn't so much as glimpsed the Skinner Demon's shadow. Speaking from the angle of disciple training, the trip really had been a bust. "No need to rush," said Yue Qingyuan. Shen Qingqiu nodded before suddenly changing the topic. "Shangmen Shizhong, I wish to go to the back of Chongding Peak and enter secluded cultivation within Lingxi Caves." Chongding Peak was the head of the 12 peaks, and naturally it collected the essence of the heavens and earth. As for the Lingxi Caves, they were Chongding Peak's best location for cultivating, giving twice the results in half the time. Therefore, the sect's most senior members and outstanding disciples could request permission from the sect leader to enter the caves for secluded cultivation. Only with the sect leader's approval could they act upon this desire. If Shen Qingqiu wanted to enter seclusion in the Lingxi Caves, he was sure Yue Qingyuan wouldn't refuse, but the smile on Yue Qingyuan's lips froze a little, his expression changing slightly. Shen Qingqiu sensed something strange, but the strangeness flashed by quickly. For the Immortal Alliance Conference? Yue Qingyuan asked gently. That's correct. It wasn't only because of the Immortal Alliance Conference, though. The incident with the Skinner Demon had made Shen Qingqiu realise the importance of diligent cultivation. In this world, you only had the right to think about the future if you had the strength to meet it. After all, bosses wouldn't always be on easy mode and saddled with below-average intelligence. Before entering seclusion, Shen Qingqiu called over Luo Binghe and handed him an actual cultivation manual. Why is Shujuan giving this disciple a completely different manual? Luo Binghe asked as he received it. Your constitution is a little different, so you can't cultivate properly by following ordinary methods, Shen Qingqiu bullshitted solemnly. He didn't want to personally reveal the truth, that Shen Qingqiu had inspired Mingfan to give Luo Binghe a fake cultivation manual, even though eventually the truth would be exposed. As he stared after Shen Qingqiu's retreating back, Luo Binghe held that manual in both hands, his heart profoundly shaken. Shujuan had specially given this manual only to him. Shen Qingqiu glanced back a couple of times and saw Luo Binghe still standing there, dumbstruck. He rubbed at the spot between his brows and kept walking. He didn't know what Luo Binghe was thinking, but the boy was almost certainly thinking too much. The Lingxi caves were labyrinthine. After travelling down 1,000 twists and turns, Shen Qingqiu emerged in what seemed like a different world, strange and beautiful. Here there was neither wind nor moon, yet it was cool and quiet. Together, white stones like clouds and green stones like jade created wonders large and small, as well as natural stone beds. At the centre lay a pool of clear water that reflected this other world like a mirror. The only thing that marred the beauty was that some cultivator who'd previously gone into seclusion here hadn't properly cherished this public facility. The cave walls were covered in countless gashes and gouges made by both blade and sword glares. The stone walls were further plastered with swathes of dried blood, and the stains had already blackened. This was only one cavern of many, and though it looked a tad like a murder scene, Shen Qingqiu was very satisfied and had no plans to find another location. He sat on the stone bed and began to cultivate, carefully following the methods he'd memorised from manuals. Then, as if the heavens didn't want him to try and honestly farm B points, not long after he began meditating, he heard a strange sound. Panting. The panting of a person in pain. At the same time, he sensed a burst of nigh-rampant spiritual energy. All right, he knew what had happened. The Lingxi caves were gigantic. Of course Shen Qingqiu couldn't be the only person who'd asked permission to enter seclusion. Someone else was cultivating here as well, and they had entered a chi deviation, which was currently at a critical juncture. I only wanted to cultivate in seclusion and farm martial skill points. That's all. Can you not do this? Can you not? Shen Qingqiu's eyes snapped open as he decided to investigate. He followed that sound and the waves of spiritual energy as he navigated the various twists and turns. As he went, the disturbances became larger and larger. At last, he arrived in another cavern. As soon as he entered, he saw a figure clothed in white facing away from him, their long sword stabbed into a rock, all the way to the hilt. Sword glares flew in every direction, without order or pattern. The smears of blood on the person in white said victim, but their movement said crazed murderer. This person's chi deviation was pretty horrifying. Shen Qingqiu mulled it over. With his half-assed knowledge, if he tried to smooth this person's spiritual circulation, it was hard to say whether he would be more likely to help or accidentally stab another spiritual knife into the fellow's back. It was then that he caught sight of that sword. With its master's spiritual energy out of control, the sword trembled unceasingly, pulling itself free a sliver at a time, all the while emitting an ear-piercing shriek. Silver light ran down the hilts, engraved incantations and phoenix ornamentation in an unending stream. Shen Qingqiu needed only a single glance to recognise which sword it was. Whose sword it was. Fuck. Of all people, he had to meet that guy. Before he'd wanted to help, but now all he wanted to do was flee for his life. It was too late. The person in white swung his head round, he having already detected his presence. In any other state, Shen Qingqiu might have declared, "What a beautiful man!" But a man could be as beautiful as he wanted, and if he glared at you with crimson eyes and bulging veins, you'd scramble to kneel, okay? Shen Qingqiu fled with a flick of his sleeves, but the man slapped the stone wall and sent rubble flying. The long sword finally broke free of the rock, and it shot through the air to stop before Shen Qingqiu's eyes, blocking his path. He barely managed to break in time. Had he been running even a little faster, he would have been beheaded. In the next instant, the white-clad man rushed him, his eyes devoid of reason. Shen Qingqiu knew it was too late to run, and he could only steel himself to meet this fight head-on. He drew spiritual energy into his right hand. Putting everything into this one blow, he struck the man's chest. If this person really was the man the rumours painted him to be, with enough martial prowess to take on the protagonist's OP abilities, this hit would be damn near useless. Not only damn near useless, Shen Qingqiu might be the one sent flying 10 meters back while coughing up fresh blood or something. However, it wasn't useless, and the one sent flying a meter back while coughing up blood wasn't Shen Qingqiu, but the other guy. Shen Qingqiu raised his right hand while staring at the person he'd knocked flat. To think he was already this badass without even making the effort to fake it. In truth, while those who entered chi deviations were terrifying when berserk, they were also terribly fragile. With luck, a single strike could be the last straw that broke their back. Expression conflicted, Shen Qingqiu watched the man half kneel in pain, straining to rise and rip into his foe, only to collapse back onto one knee. At last, Shen Qingqiu sighed and moved closer, placing a hand on the man's back. Let me say this first. Shen Qingqiu didn't concern himself with whether the man could understand him. He was saying it for himself. If I don't help you now, it'll be too late. I'm not familiar with how this works, though, so if you know. Anyhow, I'll have tried my best, so don't blame me. Again, he's saying it for himself, like he's reassuring himself, like, I'm going to try and help this person. I'm going to try my best. If it goes wrong, I will have tried my best. It's just unfortunate I don't know how to do it properly. So, After who knew how long, Shen Qingqiu felt the man's spiritual circulation gradually even out and return to normal. His worry slowly eased, and he withdrew his palm. All that remained was to pray that his slapdash, desperate attempt to help hadn't impaired the man's cultivation. The man he'd miraculously managed to save remained with his head lowered, still not yet fully conscious. To be honest, Shen Qingqiu had already guessed this person's identity, but the system's notification provided an absolute confirmation. Congratulations, system notification. The scenario, Liu Qingge's death, has been changed. The villain, Shen Qingqiu's grave-digging and hatefulness ratings have decreased. B points, plus 200. Yep, called it. This was his shitty from the same sect. He was also a sucker who'd been done in by the original Shen Qingqiu. The master of Baijian Peak of Zhangchong Mountain's 12 peaks, Liu Qingge. He was a character who personified badassery. The 12 peaks of Zhangchong Mountain each had their own long histories and distinctive characteristics. For example, the head, Chongding Peak, coordinated the big picture and oversaw the entire group. Shen Qingqiu's Qingjing Peak was the favourite of scholars and young artists. Wanjian Peak, with their perfect environment, had produced legions of master swordsmen since time immemorial. Kuxing Peak's name, aesthetic practice, spoke for itself. Even if you whipped Shen Qingqiu, he still wouldn't want to go. Shanshu Peak, meanwhile, was a draw-worthy heaven. That was because this last peak only accepted female disciples, and historically their disciples were highly attractive. It was therefore filled to the brim with beautiful girls. There'd been no shortage of lewd fan works written by perverted readers, blossoming en masse like flowers. Of these, a tyrannical Shanshu fell in love with me and my day sleeping around... Of these, a tyrannical Shanshu fell in love with me, and my day sleeping around on Shanshu Peak had been particularly outstanding, filled with grade school level writing and erotic scenes with no bottom line. The circulation and impact of these fanfics had been enormous, to the point that their popularity compared to that of the original work. It's true, there is some absolutely fab fanfictions out there. Not really talking about the erotic ones, though there are some fab erotic ones out there as well. It's amazing, how amazingly written, I'm trying to think of a better word, how skillfully written, and how it's amazing how skilled some fanfic authors really are. Some of them have their own books anyway, but honestly, I've read actual pieces of art. But out of all the peaks, the one youths loved the most, revered the most, were the wildest about joining was definitely Liu Qingge's Baijian Peak. It was the most warlike of Zhangchong Mountain's branches, as well as the branch with the greatest martial ability. Every single generation's Baijian Peak Lord was a world-class swordmaster, a victor of countless battles, an undefeated legend. How hot-blooded, how dashing! Male readers always fervently admired strong characters. Even though Liu Qingge never officially debuted on page, he hadn't lacked for fans, and Shen Yuan had been especially fascinated with him. In his headcanon, Liu Qingge had been a sharp and manly man, powerful and magnificent, a war god, right? Shen Qingqiu looked down at that face, as beautiful as a fine woman's, and his dreams shattered and died. The fantasies he'd always held, destroyed. How could the invincible Baijian Peak Lord look like his spiritual antithesis? This was clearly the face of a charming young master who arranged flowers and plucked farewell willow branches. With this appearance, you've totally betrayed the headcanons of your martial prowess fanatics. Then again, it made sense. Liu Qingge was the older brother of the number one true female lead, the peerless beauty Liu Mingyan. As the protagonist's wife, she absolutely had to be first class from top to bottom. It was just science for her to have such powerful genes. Undefeatable in battle, an arrogant disposition, and an attractive face. With Bingo around, a second character in the same mould was unnecessary. No wonder Great Master Airplane had offed him so early. Not even the protagonist, yet you dared to share those qualities. Of course you'd either be exceptional cannon fodder or dead in seconds. It hadn't occurred to Shen Qingqiu in that moment, but as he thought about it now, how might saving this person impact Luo Binghe's satisfaction points? There were few details on Luo Qingge, but he played a very important role in highlighting the depths of Shen Qingqiu's general scumminess. Even though the Liu-Shen pair were sex siblings, they didn't get along. This is why Shen Qingqiu had tried to flee at first. Already unable to see eye to eye on a normal day, throwing Liu Qingge into a chi deviation was just asking him either to chase him down and hack Shen Qingqiu to death, or, like in the original work, to have Shen Qingqiu sabotage and kill him instead. Though no one knew why their hatred ran so deep, it was a sure fact that the original Shen Qingqiu had been Liu Qingge's murderer. The exposure of this incident was one of the inciting incidents that marked the start of Shen Qingqiu's downfall. The specific line they used to condemn Shen Qingqiu went something like, "Taking advantage of an opening during another's cultivation, he intervened, driving the man to his death." So this very moment was likely when he'd made his move. The original Shen Qingqiu killed the female lead's only family, so of course Luo Binghe took revenge for his wife. Shen Qingqiu's hatefulness quotient was truly extraordinary. While Shen Qingqiu was crouching there, worrying over his future, Liu Qingge had finished coughing up blood and finally regained consciousness. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw Shen Qingqiu sitting before him with a bored expression, looking down his stuck-up nose at him. He definitely didn't look like someone with good intentions. Alarmed, Liu Qingge violently jerked upright, ready to defend himself. The motion jarred his badly injured internal organs, throwing his qi circulation into chaos. Another mouthful of blood sprayed out of him. "Shudi, regulate your qi. Don't be so agitated," Shen Qingqiu said coolly. "You're the Baishan Peak Lord. How could you let yourself look so wretched? Here, wipe yourself off." He passed Liu Qingge a handkerchief. Liu Qingge coughed up more blood. "Shen, what the hell are you planning now?" Oh my god. And I love the art here. I love it because you can see just like the anger, well, not kind of the anger, yeah, like the fact he's so alarmed, Liu Qingge, and also I just love like Shen Qingqiu's expression here, like he's kind of like nervously smiling, like kind of like like he's still putting on his front butt, not restricted anymore by OC, and but he's still kind of like a bit nervous because this person was just going into chi deviation, and he knows that they have like some sort of like hateful like relationship between them as well. Seeing how much he was suffering, Shen Qingqiu lightly clapped him on the back. Liu Qingge instantly assumed that Shen Qingqiu intended to do him harm, but he was helpless to avoid the touch. Only after the palm connected did he feel a clear, steady stream of spiritual energy enter and flow through his body, smoothing his circulation. Liu Qingge was more aghast than he would have been if Shen Qingqiu had stabbed him in the back. After all, he was used to the backstabbing. Shen Qingqiu continued to pat his back. "Liu Shidi, to tell you the truth, lately Shizhong has been in seclusion, and he's come to realize many things," he said earnestly. "Seeing you at death's door, a beauty fading, dying so young, it brought back so many memories. Shizhong is deeply ashamed and filled with regret." Liu Qingge began to hack up blood even more profusely. "From this point on, how about we leave our disagreements behind us and move forward hand in hand as a pair of model sex siblings, full of the affection due to fellow sex members," Shen Qingqiu suggested, tactfully expressing his goodwill. "How do you feel about this, Shidi?" Laying his objective out straight was a little bit shameful, but since he hadn't killed Liu Qingge and had thereby changed the scene and avoided its evil karma, he figured why not go all the way and simply build a good relationship. Maybe Master Liu could even back him up in the future. Liu Qingge's expression was abnormally poor. He looked Shen Qingqiu in the eyes for a while. Then, as if he'd finally reached the limits of his tolerance, he said, "You, go away." Shen Qingqiu nodded in understanding. After all, they'd hated each other for so long. You couldn't farm favour points so soon after a heel turn. He couldn't rush this thing, only take it slow. He went as asked, waving behind him without looking back as he walked away. If Shuji runs into more trouble during training, there's no need to be shy. You can call Shushan for help. Since we're so close, we should take care of each other. Liu Qingge looked like he would cough up more blood if Shen Qingche said anything further. His glare was terrifying. Shen Qingche wisely shut his mouth and did as he had been told. Liu Qingge was left alone, and he painfully hacked up another mouthful of blood. They'd always been at odds. Ever since he was young, Liu Qingge had been unable to stand Shen Qingche. Both parties had deeply despised each other. It wasn't the type of victory you would see when a belligerent but happy couple fought and argued, but the type where one wrong word could escalate into violence, even to the point of trying to kill each other. The fact that Shen Qingche hadn't kicked him while he was down was inconceivable in itself, but to go so far as to help, even save him. But the reality was right before him. Liu Qingge's face couldn't help twisting. He was unable to remember what had happened after the moment he lost control, but now his spiritual circulation was smooth. He couldn't have straightened it himself during his frenzy. He must have had outside assistance. Could Shen Qingche really have helped him? Just thinking about this possibility filled Liu Qingge with revulsion. He would rather have died. And that is where I'm going to end it, because it is just before 1 hour 30, and there's a decent way to go before the end of chapter 2, so I'm going to leave it there. I really like Liu Qingge's character. Again, can't remember much from the novel, but from the donghua, I really enjoyed it because he is very open about how much this new Shen Qingche completely contrasts the old one, because he has direct reference for Shen Qingche didn't hide his hatred from him. It was very blatant about it, but he's also not young like Liu Binghe, so Liu Binghe is also in a position where he's being taught by him as well, so it's a different kind of relationship, whereas Shen Qingche and Liu Binghe are sect brothers, so they're on an even kind of footing, and they're both they're peak leaders, and so he would be the most aware of the stark change in his character, and I just love the fact that he's already just what just happened, who is this person, because this is not the Shen Qingche I know, and yeah, I absolutely love that. So I'm looking forward to hopefully get quite a bit more with him. Again, can't remember really how much he plays in the story beyond what happens in the donghua, so I hope he shows up quite a bit, because I like his character. Really good reading session. It wasn't quite a full chapter, but we're close to a full chapter. I love basically I really enjoy kind of the chaos that changing the story is kind of bringing to the minds of the characters who knew the original Shen Qingche. He's changing so much. Liu Binghe is especially during the mission, was completely kind of how would you put it, not baffled, but kind of, he was really thrown off and didn't know what to think, because he noticed that Shen Qingche was actually being nice to him on the journey to Huasu. Is it? No, Shuanghu city, but then he seemingly threw him to the wolves, except from he might have perhaps done used him as a distraction so that he could attack him from behind to protect him overall. He's just I would be so dizzy, so confused, and just completely at a loss if I were him. He just Shen Qingche just doesn't seem to be able to keep his mind about how to treat him, and I would not blame him for doubting him at all. Obviously not. So yeah, I just love the fact and now Shen Qingche doesn't have the OOC function, so he can act however he wants. So doing this whole scene with the caves would not have been possible with the OOC, because such an obvious part of or such an integral part of Shen Qingche's downfall was him killing Liu Qingge, and so him wanting to save and actually saying all those lines about basically wanting to be friends and turning over a new leaf would have been completely OOC. So yeah, like I really love just the fact that he's throwing the world into chaos, and and it's funny because, like, again, he's not the protagonist, he is the villain, so he's the antagonist of the story, but of course he's changing it. So I don't know, it's funny how much of an influence that he has on the story and the characters within it. Yeah, no, really, and still really loving the book. Is there anything else I want to say? I don't know. As I said when I'm reading, absolutely adore Shen Yuan's like snark and sass, and like all his inner commentary is just like my favorite thing, and I think they did that super well in Donghua as well. The voice actor was fantastic for him, like everything from his like really speedy introduction to Proud Immortal Demon Way's plot to like the way he says, like the contrast in his lines for what he's thinking and what he's saying, like his tone of voice like really does sound like super snarky and annoyed and frustrated and like disbelieving, whereas like when he actually is saying things aloud, he's normally very calm and stuff, unless something like catches him off guard. Like he's normally very calm and serene and like proper, very much as he was saying in this chapter, like he has to act very boring and, you know, very calm. He can't be seen to be really acting out in any way. Love as along with Liu Binghe like struggling because Shen Qingqiu is like changing his attitude towards him having these kind of revelations about attraction towards his master is so funny as well. Like any moment that he like, the fact that he got to see him in a very in a state of very improper undress, like, and he just like couldn't cope with that. Especially when he saw him like blushing and stuff, like, yeah, love it. I'm really excited to carry on. Obviously I think I know what's coming up next. And I really want to see the novel version of it because I don't remember it at all. So I'm excited to read about the next plot that's going to happen. I hope you enjoyed this read through. If you have any comments regarding this chapter, then obviously please leave them down below. If you've got any comments about the next section I'm going to be reading, then also leave them below, but let me know like to read at the end after I've recorded. So I'm like not getting spoiled or anything. I'm really enjoying this. I hope you are too, and I hope to see you in future reading sessions. Bye bye.